welcome into the latest edition of ESPNFC Live. It's Tuesday. It's Kate Murray and Janusz Mihalik with you here. Before we do get into our show, just to let you know that over on ESPN Plus right now, it is the TST group reveal with Sebi and Herc. It's a Football Americas special. All the groups are being revealed with an all-star cast. We've got JJ Watt, Pat McAfee, Chris Paul, Ali Krieger, and Chad Ochocinco all joining the show. So you can run that alongside us for your multi-viewing pleasure. That is over on ESPN Plus right now. But of course, we are going to talk title race, don't we always, Janusz? It's the tale as old as time when it comes to this show. And we are down to the final stages, the final two teams in it, Arsenal and Manchester City. Has anything changed for you since we last met, Janusz, in what you're thinking?
Unfortunately not, but I'm waiting for that surprise, right? I mean, logic tells you that there's something, that there's a twist in it just to make it interesting. But, you know, I had Manchester City as winners this season once again. Some doubts, and those doubts simply because of the outstanding season that Arsenal has had. Let's not forget they are at the top of the table at the moment. So, you know, I mean, I suppose it could happen, but I'm going to stick with Manchester City, given the fact that they've been through this on numerous occasions. They have the experience. They have that one game in hand, which shouldn't be a problem because last season, if you remember, they had a number of them. But they're clearly the favorites for me.
Not concerned in any way for them about Tottenham Hotspur, given the way recent results have gone against Spurs there?
Well, I mean, the concern is kind of similar, right? Because we're going to get to Arsenal and Manchester United. You know, those are the concerns. Arsenal and Man United, but we've seen what's happening with Manchester United. So, and Spurs aren't that much better. But I worry about Arsenal at Old Trafford, believe it or not, more than I worry about Manchester City playing away to Spurs, where they have not had a lot of luck in terms of results and even scoring goals. I think that Manchester City will solve finally Spurs away.
So what's the concern for you with Arsenal and Manchester United then, Janusz? What stands out?
It's just one of those as a former player. I mean, you look at Manchester United. I mean, the bottom of bottoms. I've never seen in my lifetime a worse Manchester United team, a team that against Crystal Palace was absolutely non-existent for the most part. But I do think that, you know, there's that little bit of pride and you know, that game. I think Liverpool has faced that. I think they understand what it meant to lose to Crystal Palace in a way that they did. I'm going to make an assumption that Bruno Fernandes is going to be back. I think that they maybe sense it, that there's going to be new broom in town, perhaps. And I just think that it's almost too obvious now to pick Arsenal when we were watching Manchester United, Crystal Palace, and the debacle that we've seen, that is the entire season. And I just think that my just gut feeling tells me that possibly United could draw in that game there.
That they could, but maybe still a chance that they could just win it. Is there a chance that we're going down to the final day with the title race?
I hope so. It looks that way. But as I hope explained a little bit, that I just have a feeling that going into the last game, Manchester City will know exactly what needs to be done, and they'll get the job done.
Let's play hypothetical worlds then, where there would be a chance the two teams could be tied on points on the final day. Obviously, there'd have to be a City slip for that to happen. Could you see them, if it came down to it, having to make up the goal difference and being able to put 5, 6, 7, 8 goals past West Ham?
It could happen. I don't see that's happening. You know, even though West Ham we've seen this season, just even recently. But no, I don't think that's going to be the case. Even when it came down to it, West Ham. I mean, just imagine. I know obviously that David Moyes is no longer there. I think the players will be under the watchful eye of, let's just assume, Lopetegui. So no, even though they're capable, Manchester City, and they've proven over and over and over again, I think if it came down to that, if it comes down to that, I think that we're going to have a new champion, and that will be Arsenal.
Let's go down to the final day then. Even if they were to win out, both of these teams, we're going down to the final day here. Do you feel like it would be more heartbreaking for Arsenal if they were to lose out on the final day? Or do you think that because it's not quite in their hands and they know it's still dependent on what City does, it's an easier one to swallow?
Well, it would be heartbreaking for sure. It would also be I mean, you're talking about perfection here for Manchester City for all, for years and years and years. And I think if you Arsenal, I mean, it would be heartbreaking. But as you said, I mean, if they were going even into that, it's a little bit different. But because at this moment, Manchester City, obviously, if they run out winners in all games, they'll win it. I think it would be, and it would be a spin. And I'll tell you this much, and I've said this before, it wouldn't be a choke, because when you go to the last game and City squeezes out another championship, just by goals or by a point, there's no shame in that. There's absolutely no shame in that. And I think the Arsenal would be probably knowing that their next season is absolutely theirs. And I truly believe in that. I believe in that process. I've seen the progress from Arsenal. So I think they would quickly turn this into kind of a quest for next season.
Yeah, it definitely makes it interesting. The Premier League title race has come down to the final day 8 times. But you have already mentioned how you think that Manchester United could prove to be problematic for Arsenal, particularly with what's been going on with Manchester United at the moment. There's going to have to be a response from them. But if we're to look at this game tactically, what are you looking out for? How do you think it's going to go?
Well, that's an issue with Eric Ten Hag. I mean, obviously, look, I mean, it's a bit of a, I don't know if that's a good word, geriatric world in Manchester United. It's almost unfair to them when you look at that game and you look at, okay, you can say experienced players, but players that clearly had a difficulty when being pressed. Arsenal is going to, not that they would look at Crystal Palace for a way of playing, but that's the way they play. I assume that they would press that midfield as well. And for Manchester United, I think, as I said, it's a pride. It's what we saw against Liverpool, right? So I don't necessarily think it's tactics. It would be, I mean, I just can't imagine that Manchester United players, after what happened this season, but in particular in that last game, would allow this to happen against Arsenal at home. So it just withstand, play on the counter. And again, this is on the assumption that maybe Rashford and Bruno Fernandes would be available. If they're not, then I don't see a chance for Manchester United.
As for the Spurs-Man City game, let's talk about how you see that one going and why Spurs have proved to be problematic for this City side in those recent games.
Yeah, I'm not big on history, right? And you know that. I think the listeners know that as well. I have no answer for that. There's never an answer for that. Why is it happening that over the last decade or 2 decades or 3 decades, some teams struggle, even though the players are totally different? As a player, I never thought about it. It's amazing. It's just down to fans and pundits, because every player that I know would tell you that they're, for the most part, totally unaware of the fact that maybe, in the past they haven't been successful. So let's just throw that out the window, because this Manchester City, every time they go to Spurs, they're favorites. They're usually the better team. And I think going into this game with the way that Spurs are fumbling right now would just go, I mean, they're pretty much healthy everywhere, knowing what needs to be done, they'll get the job done. And this is for Ange Postecoglou. I think it was a great start to the season. Injuries, suspensions, that happens to everybody. But Kay, I just think that Spurs will probably need to look towards the next season, because they understand there's no way back right now into the Champions League.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk about the irony that Spurs could actually give Arsenal the title, which is obviously wild to think about.
Not gonna happen.
You know what? It's interesting, isn't it, Janusz? Because we all see it from the outside, a lot of us as football fans, and it's the fans that would see it that way. But players will always have their professionalism about them, their pride about them, and they're always going to give the best, whatever team they're up against and whatever it means, right?
Yes, until that first goal, right? I mean, it's been interesting in a way, because it's hard to say, like, the way Spurs capitulate, right? And you can say, well, they show a little bit of character in that game, scoring 2 goals. The game was over. Against Arsenal, 3-0. I mean, that's a capitulation. And the fact that I think it was Raya that gave him life. It's not necessarily that they've worked for it. It was a gift. So I think against Manchester City, if it was tough against Arsenal, and then the last game for Spurs, if Manchester City scored that first goal, it's all over. I think the players, the players will show professionalism, but against a team like Manchester City, you can be as professional as you want to be. When it's 1-0 or 2-0, you're just hoping that's not going to be a thrashing, and that's the way I look at it. So again, just like in any game against Manchester City, if you can stay the course, if you can get the crowd into it, but how much you're going to get the crowd into it? Think about it, what you just said, knowing that you may be giving Arsenal the title. I just don't see it anyway. Just to me, it's impossible. Manchester City will find a way, and they'll be ready. Let's remember, for them, winning Premier League and winning the title against Manchester United, that's massive now, being out of the Champions League. So I think there's, they're turning the page on maybe this dynasty they've had. I'm not saying that Manchester City is not going to continue that, but I think they're going to bleed one or two key players, and it's going to be a quiet rebuild, I suppose, if I could say it that way. So yeah, it's big for them.
You're just seeing here ESPNFC poll with the Premier League season coming to an end, who ESPNFC followers have winning the title. 37% say Arsenal, 63% say Manchester City. Just a reminder, Arsenal currently on 83 points with a plus 60 goal difference. Manchester City 82 points, but with that game in hand, and a plus 54 goal difference. Janusz, quick word on Erling Haaland, if we can, this season as a whole so far. We've seen another hat-trick. It's 25 goals this season. We've seen him score headers as well now, Janusz.
Yeah, nothing changes with me, and I sort of, I painted myself in a corner, and in a way, I suppose, because it almost seems like I don't like him, and I think you and everybody understands. Okay, it's a great season, given what happened last year. He's barely leading the charts, right? And the goals he scored, as I've said it last time, he doesn't score for 2 or 3 games or 4 games, and then he gets his 3 or 4 or 5, right? He's absolutely incredible in penalties. That's a skill, by the way. I don't take that away from him. We all know that he can finish, but there's something lacking for me, right, in terms of talking about him as one of the great players, which he isn't. That's tight, right? Cole Palmer, look at the youngsters not far away from him in a Chelsea squad that's struggling this season. So, yes, great job. I'd expect that for what, £900,000 a week, just about. He better be doing that.
You're very hard to please, Janusz.
No, I just, we all live in this bubble, and that bubble is appreciative of his talent. He's an incredible striker, right? But I'm just not, I think he's still lacking a lot, and he's very, very young. He will get better, but for me, he doesn't contribute enough if I have to compare him to the likes, to just the recent history, right? The Robert Lewandowski at his best and Harry Kane at his best. I'm still going to sit here and say, nothing would have changed if Harry Kane was part of that team or Robert Lewandowski was part of that team at their best.
But then in 5 years' time, you could revisit this topic and change your mind. He's still young, Janusz.
I could. I'm just talking about the present. And there's too many. Even this season, as we've said, look at the games, against some of the top opposition. He hasn't been at his best in some of those games. Had he been at his best, like last season even, we wouldn't have been having this conversation about Manchester City and Arsenal.
All right. I've got some hot takes from around social media to put to you. I'm going to give you the hot take. You're going to give me what you think about it. You can respond to what we hear. Okay, let's get started. Lionel Messi and Luis Suarez will combine for 50-plus goal contributions this season. Right now, between them, it's 34, with Messi on 19 and Suarez on 15. So we're saying 50-plus goal contributions combined this season.
They'll hit that before halfway season.
Right.
I almost want to say easy. The 50. I remember last season you gave me Haaland with 40 plus, and I didn't believe you. That was tough. I thought that was tougher to achieve than what you're asking me right now. You look at the last game, and those two are on the same page. They look for each other exclusively when they feel like it, almost. So it's their world, and we're living in it. And I think they'll hit 50 in next 7 games or something like that. When it's all said and done, it's probably be around 70.
We've got a fan question here. It goes back to something from when Messi first came to MLS. It says Messi and Suarez impact a mockery of MLS.
Well, it seems that way. I mean, there's good and bad in it, right? I mean, it's almost too easy. I watch that in awe, and I appreciate what Lionel Messi does, because I mean, it's almost, there's like 10 times during a game when he decides I'm going to do it now, and he does whatever he wants. So I mean, that's wonderful to watch. I think he's done that, by the way, in Europe, but now it's just incredible. I mean, what can you say? They are. So that's a positive for Major League Soccer, because we're talking about it constantly. We see highlights of it just about everywhere, because people appreciate the brilliance, not just of Lionel Messi, but even Luis Suarez. But the flip side of that, it's almost too easy. But then again, that's Major League Soccer. Defensively, it's lacking tremendously, and they're exposing that every which way.
Okay, your next hot take. We're heading back to the Premier League. Chelsea are better situated for future success than Manchester United.
By a country mile, because I mean, there's so much. They're earlier to the process, aren't they? Right? I mean, I've said it here, talking about Manchester United and Chelsea season. It's been disappointing and similar in so many ways, right? But the one big difference is that there are a lot of young players that are coming good. Okay, pressure is off, so that's a little bit easier. We'll see if that continues for the rest of the season. And obviously, we're going to judge Chelsea differently next season as well, because our expectations are going to be higher. I think we're going to want to see Chelsea from the beginning to show that at the very least they can contend for the top four after spending so much money. We all know that they're going to have to divest a lot of key players. I suspect that they may transfer in some others, but I mean, there's zero comparison. I mean, because the clear out, if you will, has taken place with Chelsea in the last couple of seasons, and right now, a lot of the young players. You look at Cole Palmer, you look at Madueke, you look at Jackson, you look at Mal Gusto, hasn't been playing as of late, but Badiashile. Everybody's kind of just finding their feet just a little bit. So you'd expect, if you talk about process, very much like we had with Arsenal, a lot of young players 3-4 years ago when Mikel Arteta started that, it's paying dividends right now. And I think with Chelsea, they can at least feel that the worst is over. The worst is still ahead of Manchester United. Quite frankly, I don't know how they fix it.
Okay, so tell me this, Janis. Even though there are likely to be changes ahead at Manchester United, if you were a manager now and you had the choice to go and manage at Chelsea in their current situation or Manchester United in theirs, who would you choose and why?
I think I've just explained that further. I mean, I don't know where I would go with Manchester United. I really don't, because, we talk about the clear on Manchester United. Some of it is realistic. Some of it isn't. I mean, how many players? I mean, we're talking about 3 or 4 players where I feel comfortable can make a difference and you can build around. The rest is waste. It's simply waste. And in, in the years past, before, everything, the finances in the Premier League, I think it would have been a little bit easier. Right now, I think the pull of Manchester United is still there, but it's less and less with every season. And I think, although I would never give up on Manchester United in terms of them coming back to their glory, because I think it's one of those institutions that managers and players alike will still take a chance if they see that the years of mismanagement that are coming to roost right now are on the way up. And I think there's at least they're trying to do something about it right now, that you feel that maybe off the pitch things are getting better. But before, I mean, look, it's probably 3 or 4 seasons before we can actually even think about Manchester United challenging for the title.
Okay, well, it leads me nicely to a fan question that's coming here, which says, at what point are we going to say it's not the manager and it's been the players? And then in brackets, since Sir Alex, it's been a problem.
Yeah, I mean, at any point you can say that, as I just mentioned. I mean, these are years of mismanagement, so it's players. But I think with every manager, if I look at Ten Hag, I mean, part of me feels for him, but when you come to Manchester United, Jose Mourinho has done it, everybody has done it. Even though maybe there are some promises made, I mean, these guys know how this works. That the promises that are made are very often just that, promises. And at the end of the day, you have to, as the CEO of the company, and that's what I'm talking about, Ten Hag or any manager, you have to find a way. And it's been super hard for them. I get that, because you look at that team against Crystal Palace. I mean, look, even if Bruno Fernandes was available in that game, and maybe even Rashford, I thought that Manchester United were going to lose. But to have that sort of a midfield and Casemiro at center back, and all the issues that even a little kid understands, where there are simply no legs to deal with the pressing and youthfulness of Crystal Palace. Yeah, of course it's not just on Ten Hag. That's easy.
Next hot take. Jadon Sancho should play for Manchester United next season.
Well, he may be forced to it, but if I were him, I'd do everything to stay where he is. He seems to like that environment. I suppose everything's going to depend on if Erik Ten Hag's going to be there. If Erik Ten Hag's going to be there, then he doesn't want Sancho, and certainly Sancho doesn't want to be part of that. So there's going to have to be a conclusion. He may stay at Borussia Dortmund or goes elsewhere. But I think if you're Sancho right now, I can't imagine that he's even thinking about going back to Manchester United. And if he's asked that question, I'm sure he's dreading it.
Next hot take. PSG beating Real Madrid in a Champions League final would be the perfect send-off for Mbappe.
Yeah.
For him, right? For him personally.
Of course it would be. I don't see it, but I think for him, I don't know how to play. When you go into a club, obviously you're going to be professional, you're going to win it, and people will eventually forget it. I think for him, the important part would be to leave PSG on his terms, because that club is very near his heart. Yeah, it's easy to say there's a lot of money, but we all know that this is his town. He grew up on the outskirts of Paris, and of course we know how much he means to the PSG supporters, and vice versa. So it would be special. I would love to see it, because it would be a story in itself.
All right. Last one. It's a name you've mentioned actually today already, so let me put it to you once again. Cole Palmer should be the Premier League's player of the season.
No, but I do have to admit, because our producer Rob, I don't know if you remember, Kay, and it was not even on the air. He was telling me that he should be starting for England, and I shut him down. That was a couple months ago. I tell you what, Rob knows his stuff for sure, and maybe I didn't give him, not that I didn't give him benefit of doubt, but I just didn't think it was going to be, he's going to play this sort of a role this quickly, and he's been absolutely sensational. But I'd still, if you go sort of like for like, if you will, I wouldn't. I'd give it to Odegaard if I had to choose right now. Easy decision for me. Obviously, Palmer is very, very young, and that may change for me. I'd even give it to Saka before I give it to him. So no.
Oh no, okay. But you are bowing down to producer Rob's brilliance, Janis.
Yes, that conversation wasn't Premier League, if I remember correctly. I'm sure as soon as this is over, Rob is going to remind me off air here. But I think it was a conversation about Euros, and that he should be in the starting lineup for England. And I shut him down very, very hard. I'm reconsidering that, although I'm not in the Euro mode just yet. I'm almost getting to it, because there's some competition there in the English starting 11. Not that he wouldn't deserve it, but I think he may play a big role there.
Anything you'd like to add, sir, from what we've seen over the last week, Janis, before we say goodbye to our viewers?
The only thing that we should be talking of the top here, and that is, of course, Bayer Leverkusen, 5-1 at Eintracht Frankfurt, undefeated. What is it, 48 games? I mean, this is an incredible story. I so hope that they see it through and they stay undefeated the whole season, but at the very least in the Bundesliga, because they absolutely deserve it. It's an incredible story because I mean they seem to get better every game and they do something incredible every game. So I'm so glad that we get to talk about Xabi Alonso and a team like Bayer Leverkusen instead of the usual Real Madrid, Manchester City, Arsenal's, Liverpool's, and Barcelona's. It's so refreshing. It's the best story, and maybe best story of the decade or decades.
Yeah, 2 more games to go in the Bundesliga. That's what they're seeing as the perfect one. If they can do that, obviously the other competitions that they're still in would be a huge bonus as well. They have 1 foot in the final of the Europa League, though they need to see it out against Roma this week. And then, of course, they are up against Kaiserslautern in the Pokal final, which comes at the end of it all. But it has been a wonderful story. And if you actually check out lots of our footage and our content here on our ESPNFC YouTube channel, you'll see a lot more from Bayer Leverkusen and interviews with Xabi Alonso, and they're brilliant players as well. But that's it from me and Janusz right now. Thank you so much for being with us. We'll see you again very soon.